listening to The Daily Show.
The Daily Show?
The Daily Show.
The Daily Show.
On Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
Men's Radio.
With Russ Kane.
And that'll be me. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Men's Radio Station. This is The Daily Show. I'm Russ Kane, being joined in about 5 minutes by Liz Saul, professional broadcaster. See, she's going to bring her expertise to the show. How was your weekend? I hope it was all right. I had a kind of an amazing day yesterday, which I'm going to talk about before I bring on our first guest of the week. It was absolutely uplifting, and it was I'm not going to go life-changing. Hi, Robert. I'm not going to go life-changing, but I am going to say it was a big deal. I went on the march yesterday in central London. I live in London. If you're watching around the world, that's where I live, in London, UK. And I went on the march against anti-Semitism. Didn't know how many people were going to turn up. Estimates are around 105,000, which was extraordinary. And I'll be honest, I had to dig deep because I hate crowds. I'm no good in crowds. And I was quite fearful because I thought, well, if the people who've been taking over London week after week after week after week, every Saturday, bring their violence and bring their ghastliness, it's going to be deeply unpleasant. It was a magnificent event. Absolutely magnificent. Joy, peacefulness, respect, no pushing and shoving. 105,000 people being utterly polite to each other. It was extraordinary. We said hello to every policeman that the crowd passed. The police were chatting to us. We were chatting to the police. They were absolutely couldn't have been better because they knew there was going to be no trouble. It wasn't going to kick off when it was a slow meander rather than a march, to be brutally honest with you. But when we walked past all the monuments, they were treated with great respect. There was no graffiti. There was no climbing on them. There was no defacing them. There was no disrespect, especially the cenotaph. And it was just a fantastic thing to think, no, you're not alone. A lot of other people think that. The things that I loved was there were people from all walks of life, all different religions, all different faiths. Two guys I was walking with for a while was from Iran, not the lunatic Iran, but, the Iran that we used to like before it went nuts. And they were there. It was just great. And it was a wonderful thing. And it was very, very uplifting. And it's been a bit of a tidal flow in my heart, which sounds weird. It sounds very Neil Long, doesn't it? But it was, and I had to steel myself to go, and I'm thrilled and so pleased that I went. It was life-changing. It truly was. And what really interests me, then we bring on our guest. What really interested me, there was so many placards, apart from peace and release the hostages and all of that, which you would expect, condemning the BBC and Sky News, quite rightly so. Quite rightly so. That their reporting of this has been disgusting, disgraceful, biased. And I've said it before, I've said it again, the sooner the BBC is defunded, the better. They are unfit for purpose. They're a disgrace. And please don't throw David Attenborough in. David Attenborough is a god. And this is the other thing. This is from Graham Pack. No one wore masks yesterday precisely to protect their faces when you compare that to the Saturday marches, where so many wear the mask to hide themselves. That's when they set off flares, climb on monuments, and scream death threats. There was no anger. There was no threats. There was no threats of violence. Nothing. And weirdly, of all the people out of the 105,000 that BBC Local News, I think it's BBC London News, could have interviewed and filmed, they filmed Francine Warner's husband, Michael. So weird. How weird is that? I know, Fran, you must have been very proud. The best line from today's Daily Mail was from Robert Hardman when he said, dropping in a Pret, I found the shelves completely clean out of smoked salmon sandwiches long before lunchtime was over. The best placard, the two best placards were, and I was right by them. One was, why be anti-Semitic Why be an anti-Semite when you can be anti-Marmite? Which was just witty. And then there was an attractive woman saying, any eligible men with her phone number. I thought that was great. Let's meet our first guest of the week. An interesting guy. This has been planned for some time, and I'm looking forward to chatting with him. Romany, are you there?
Good morning. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Afternoon to you, but it's probably Romany time. It could be a different time zone. Wow, that looks fascinating. I'm very nosy when it comes to other people's. Is that that looks like an antique desk behind you? Am I anywhere close?
No, a font from a church. Part of a font from a church.
Oh,
this is my studio.
I can't see it. Probably looks. Oh, it looks fantastic.
Well, it's only part of it left. It's sort of been dismembered over the years.
Oh, wow. Right, Romany, tell us about yourself, please. Oh, is that paint on your shirt? Is that shirt?
It is. Forgive me. I didn't expect to be on a camera on radio. So I'm in my
really? It's a shame your PR people didn't show you all the endless emails that make it very, very clear that it's on.
Apologies.
Anyway, there we are.
Yes. Anyway, this is how I usually am. I'm a sculptor and a painter. I sculpted the Brighton AIDS Memorial, which was unveiled by David Furnish in 2009. Prior to that, I was a lawyer specialising in acquired brain injury.
Hang on. So before you became an artist, you were a solicitor?
Indeed, yes. For many years, yes.
Wow.
So I gave up full-time work when I was 39. Decided that I didn't have enough time to work and sculpt. So yeah, interesting. And I didn't transfer immediately. I whittled the legal work down over the years and gave up just under 10 years ago.
So Romany, this fascinates me because I was a lawyer as well many years ago, and I loathed it. I absolutely loathed it. And I got the chance to emigrate, and I packed a bag and I left in a week to go and live in America. Never looked back. So what was, before we get into your art, because this is a radio station dedicated to mental health and well-being, there you are, you're specializing in something which is very important, brain injury, as you just said.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind when you thought, I don't want to do this anymore. My heart belongs to sculpture and painting. How did that
I love the law. I love the law. I really enjoyed my job. It was very fulfilling. Mainly legally aided clients who were in pretty bad shape and their families. And so I would be working with them for, say, 6-7 years. But many of them were cerebral palsy cases, so it would take some time to establish what damage had been caused by the negligence. So it was heavy work. It wasn't the work that I left. It was being a partner in a firm of solicitors that I didn't want to devote all my time to making money. I knew that there was something else I had to do. So for many years, I had worked for a wonderful firm who allowed me the freedom to come and go as and when I pleased. And so if it hadn't been for them, the choice would have been much more difficult. So I essentially went into work when I felt like it.
So they were encouraging.
Absolutely, yes. Very wonderful firm in Brighton at the time.
How did that come about? That is very rare.
It is very rare. I told my boss that I just didn't think my heart was in it to be an equity partner. He said, you've got 3 choices. You leave today, you have 3 months notice, or how about you come in when you want and charge us for your billable hours? And that's what I did for the next 12 years.
Well, because that's what I was going to, I know this has nothing to do with art, but I was just wondering what sort of financial arrangement they came to you and say, well, look, just charge us when you're working, etc. I get that.
Yes, I was a consultant and I billed on an hourly basis. And the deal was that I lived very nearby and I was always on call if need be. I could run into the office dressed like this, sign my post and run back home again.
When you say, I know this is what you signed up to talk about, but I'm fascinated because we do. Hello, Liz. Good morning to you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody.
Do you want to drop your camera just a fraction, Liz, and we can see you better? Because we've got a fabulous view of the ceiling, which is, I'm sure.
I know.
Jesus. There we go. Fantastic.
Marvelous BBC ceiling. We needed to see this.
We don't want to see anything of the BBC. What? There was negligence. You were saying there was negligence. Is that correct? I know you can't go
Yeah.
into specifics, but Romany, there was negligence that these people had become
Well, maybe
worse than they would have.
deprivation of oxygen at birth if the
Oh,
cord is wrapped
Lord.
around the neck. Just said, put
Oh.
simply, maybe in some cases the mother should have had a cesarean quickly and didn't,
Right.
and therefore the child was deprived of oxygen. Or a lot of them
You know,
were catastrophic brain injuries as a consequence of road traffic accidents, but
Oh,
it is all acquired brain injury.
And let me ask you this: a lot of people, when they're in heavy duty work like that, Romany, take it home with them.
Mhm.
Did you have a coping mechanism that when you were out the office, that was it? You didn't have that heaviness with you?
So in those days, I think it was easier because didn't have access to email outside the office.
Brilliant.
That's just, it was too early then. So I think I was quite good at parking work, but the way I dealt with it was to work really hard at home. And so I'd be up until 2:00 in the morning sculpting, and that's very absorbing. So I couldn't think of anything else because my passion was sculpting. So there wasn't room in my head to worry about work. So I think I was very capable of switching off.
It's a rare talent to be able to do that, but so important because otherwise you are sucked into that, that situation, which doesn't help your life.
Well, I think so. I think that my work was easier to deal with than, say, friends who dealt with child abuse cases, horrible divorce cases. My clients got better and better because of the work I was doing for them. Their life became easier. Their health would also be impacted by the involvement of therapeutic interventions. So it was a very positive role to play, and generally people's lives got much better as a consequence of the work I was doing. Whereas if you're dealing with abuse cases, sometimes it never gets better and the consequences are horrifying. So I viewed my work as quite easy to deal with compared to some of my colleagues.
It's interesting because even in this 10 minutes we've been chatting, it's very obvious what a very empathetic person you are. And I can see how that empathy would transfer itself into art. So when did you suddenly think, wait a minute, I'm really interested in becoming a sculptor? When did that, that's quite a random thought, isn't that?
It is. I was very interested in photography, went to sign up for photography classes when I was a lawyer in London, and they were full. There was no place. So I signed up for the sculpture class thinking people drop out because they lose interest after a few weeks when term starts. I'll cross the corridor into the photography class, and sculpting, I just find it became a passion overnight. And so I knew I didn't want to go and study the photography, but I couldn't continue with the class because I just worked too hard as a lawyer in London. So as soon as I moved to Brighton, signed up for a sculpture class. And you mentioned before that you find it very absorbing when you're sculpting. Do you find it therapeutic as well? Well, I suppose it is therapeutic, but it's incredibly stressful and it can take me to a very dark place.
Okay.
So
really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm now painting mainly. Painting for me is where I am at this time when I'm painting. Sculpting comes from much deeper down, and so therefore it can be very troubling. So a lot of people see quite a lot of angst and not necessarily pain, but they see a slightly tortured soul in my sculptures. I don't think they see that in all my paintings. So my belief is that sculpting is about who I am, not where I am. And so it's a difficult place to go. So when we all have blocks, writers, artists, we all have blocks. When I have a block, it's bad. And I go into a very, very deep trough. But then the quid pro quo is that when I'm on a high, it's almost explosive. So so therapeutic is
Romany,
I have to do it. I don't have a choice. That's how I see it.
I don't find that entirely surprising, actually. And you mentioned about painting as well. But I know of some artists that find painting both therapeutic but equally stressful as well because of what it brings from within. Oh, I don't find painting easy at all. I don't find any of it easy. When it's going badly, it's a desperate place to be. But when it goes well, and I work very rapidly. Everything I do, I'm ambidextrous. I paint with two hands, several canvases. Oh, wow.
and I destroy a lot of work because it either comes together quickly or it doesn't work. That doesn't mean I do it in a short time, but I'll spend a lot of time thinking, and then some strokes of the palette knife, and it either works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, then suddenly the knife comes out. It's a rather chaotic procedure.
What when you say, Romany, that it takes you to a dark place, is it? And I'm trying to equate this to myself as a writer. Is it because you're frustrated, you can't get the work out, or does it trigger something within you?
I think frustrated that I can't get the work out. I know there's something there, and I don't know where it is or how to find it. My approach is just carry on working. As long as I do something related to my work, it could be making canvases, preparing canvases, even website, everything. I just work and work and work at it, and then suddenly you just have this moment where you think, I know a flash of orange in that painting, and it's going to be fine. So the amount of time, particularly with painting, that I'm applying paint to canvas, sometimes I'm just thinking, what have you done all day? But I have to go through that suddenly, then it just happens. And I don't know what happens or how I've thought about it. Some people are very deliberate and they do drawings and they plan what they're going to do. None of mine is planned. It's very spontaneous. If being spontaneous can take a very long time, if that makes sense. I have to work up to that spontaneity. And some days I think, what on earth have you been doing all day? You haven't really done a lot, but I have. I've been absorbed in it all day.
But do you know where it's going to end up, Romany?
The final piece?
Romany, I apologize for the slight lag. It's the tech. There's nothing we can do about it. It's quite frustrating.
I don't really care where any of
it will where you'll go when you start.
I have a vague idea of what I'm going to do. I don't really know what I'm going to do. I may decide that I will do a Head and Shoulders, or I'll decide that I'm doing.
But you can't do that with a book.
Sorry?
Well, I suppose you could do that with a book. If you start in the middle and expand one way and the other, maybe.
No, you can't.
Yes, I enjoy writing, and that was my job as a lawyer. So I do write some articles, and you just have to put something on paper and then revisit it. That would be a different exercise for me.
Well, the difference is with the book, and there's so many things I've said which are resonating, and some of the things you're saying, I'm going, wow, that's extraordinary. With a book, you have to know how it's kind of going to end. You may not know how you're going to get there, but you have to know how the story is going to end in some form or another. Not perhaps every detail, but you've got to have that. So I'm just fascinated, like with a sculpture, go, I don't know, picking something silly like I'm going to do a horse's head. I don't know. You probably don't. It doesn't matter. But, you start and you think, right, in this block of whatever you're chipping away at is a horse's head, and I'm going to uncover it. That might be one way. Or I couldn't imagine just taking a hammer and chisel or whatever you use and just chipping away and hoping something miraculously going to emerge.
A lot of my work has been in clay, which you can put bits on, take them off. You can be freer. I went to live in Italy to sculpt in marble for 2 years, but unfortunately had to race because of the pandemic. But I went to live in a place called Pietrasanta, and there I was working with the purists who you had to get to know your stone, so they wouldn't allow me to have too much of an idea where I was going to go, because although you have to, with a big block of marble, you have to have some idea of where you're going to go, but the stone will dictate where you end up if you're going to produce good work. That's quite a different discipline to, say, sculpting in clay and having a cast of bronze.
Why does the stone, I love this, but why does the stone, Romany, dictate?
Well, any stone, there are different grades of stone and marble, but it might have a flaw in it that a bit drops off, so you have to go in a different direction. There are some people who don't adhere to those principles, and they will take big saws out and take a whack off so that they're nearer their place. But that's not how I chose to work, and that's what suits me. You have a vague idea. So it might be a horse's head, and then it might end up being a very abstract horse's head. If I was doing realistic work and trying to represent a horse, then it would be different. But that's not what I've ever tried to do.
Okay.
I can do it, but I don't wish to do it.
Okay. All right. Tell us about what you... I get that. Tell us about what you created for Brighton that was unveiled by David Furnish.
Well, I was asked to enter a competition for a public commission for an AIDS memorial, HIV and AIDS memorial, to remember those whose lives have been affected, not just the dead, those whose lives have been affected by HIV and AIDS. I was asked to enter the competition when it had about 10 days before it closed. I didn't know it was going on.
Oh, crumbs.
And so slightly overwhelming. My soulmate,
I'm not surprised.
my soulmate had died of AIDS in 1992. It's called Tay after him. So I very much wanted to do it because of him. I didn't know about budgeting, so it was overwhelming. Coincidentally, I was going to Italy at the time to Pietrasanta, which is the center of the stone carving industry. That's why I went back to live there later, or tried to. So I had a very short time to come up with something. In my head, I visited important memorials that I had visited. The most important being the JFK Memorial in Dallas, because I lived there after I studied law. And then there was one in Belfast, and it represents a woman being blown off her feet. And I grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. I was very determined that this was not going to be a depressing memorial. I wanted it to be uplifting and positive because of the great strides that had been made in treating people with AIDS and HIV. And I was trustee of an HIV charity for a long time. So I was involved in that work. So the idea for two figures who have met at some time, and then if you follow the trajectory of the two figures, you don't really know whether they're going to meet again or not, or how entangled their lives were. It could have been a chance meeting. One represents male, one represents everyone else, because at the time, back then, it very much affected men, but we know that it affects everyone. So that's where the thinking came from. And it started off as being the proposal was for a very small sculpture, about 3 feet high, maybe. And because there was such a strong urge to have the memorial, money came flooding in, and I was able then to create something much bigger, for me, much more positive, because it's soaring, more significant. So it ended up, they ended up creating a charity with the money that was left over called the Rainbow Fund, which funds LGBTQ plus communities and charities in Brighton. So I think that was one of the most wonderful outcomes of it, other than being able to have the opportunity to create a public sculpture, was the Rainbow Fund, because that carries on great work and still does, and will.
And somewhat unexpected as well, as there you were asked to do a sculpture, a piece, and yet it also helped LGBT plus communities as well.
Yes, I chose not to be paid. I didn't want to be paid for it, but also I wanted as much money to go into the sculpture because I wanted to be able to create something monumental. Wow. So there was money left out, and the figures involved were daunting. It's an expensive procedure, and a lot of people were involved who weren't paid and gave their time and were very generous. So along the way, so it was pleased with the result. It can be challenging creating a piece of modern art to go in a public space, and some people will be very against it, no matter what it's for. So there was a campaign against it in the local newspaper, or a mini campaign, but that all added to
what did they not like?
They didn't like the sculpture.
Romany, what didn't they like?
They didn't like that it represented two people that might have had sex together. I think that's what it was about.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
In a nutshell. So you can imagine the language around that and homosexuality. It was a very minor thing. It wasn't really that significant.
And particularly in Brighton, that's always been rather forward thinking.
I was going to say.
Well, it's the keyboard warriors, isn't it? They, gives people power. And also it's good that there's a debate. That doesn't worry me at all.
That's very true.
So nice when I was
what are you working on now?
Apart from that, everything was fine.
Say that again?
It wasn't great when I was spat on in the street.
Oh my God.
But There you go.
No.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah. When I was walking my dog about 7:30 in the morning, so I was a bit bleary-eyed as it was before that landed on my head.
What kind of raving lunatic does that? What a horrible, revolting thing to do.
Yeah.
Were you okay after
that? It was a very positive experience.
Fine.
I don't mean to dwell on the negative. It was a very positive experience.
No, I get that. All right. Jesus Christ. What are you working on now, Romany?
I'm publishing a book next year called Sculpting Colour, which is essentially to be dedicated to Paul Tay, who the memorial's named after. And it's essentially about how I migrated from lawyer to sculptor to painter. So it's called Sculpting Colour because I describe myself as a sculptor who paints rather than a painter.
Would you say is it about your work or is it autobiographical?
It's autobiographical, which I wasn't planning. When the publishers approached me, really lovely man, Alex Leith, is writing it. We have maybe our final interview this afternoon, so I didn't know how it was going to pan out. So it appears to be biographical, which is slightly scary. I hope I offend anyone or disgrace myself, but I probably have done that already. So it's been a very, very interesting experience.
No.
Well,
I'm going to ask you one final question. I'm going to ask you a final question, Romany, because it's something I believe in. I know Liz does as well. How important to you is art to good mental health?
Well, I think I said earlier in this interview, I have no choice but to do it. So not to do it would be devastating to my mental health. And I know I'm not in a good place when I'm not being productive and not trying. Or even if I'm not being productive, I have to be trying all the time. So I don't feel fulfilled or complete unless I've worked at it. So that's important.
The word I was looking for. Fulfilled. The word I was looking for is fulfilled. And I was saying, having a bet with myself, Romany, I hope he uses the... Oh man, this is like listening to myself. This is freaking me out a little bit here, Romany, because it's like listening to myself. If I'm not doing stuff which is creative, I don't feel fulfilled at all. It has to be creative. Doesn't matter what it is. Romany, it's been an absolute pleasure. Well, if they don't, but not everybody can do that. Other people feel fulfilled by whatever they might do. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. But if you're driven and you don't know why you're driven, but you're driven, I can see that. It's in every pore of your being. It's in your DNA to create in whatever format that might be. And if you're driven and you don't have that creative outlet, the results are very unpleasant. They're unpleasant.
Very unpleasant, yes.
And actually, it turns out you're very talented, Romany.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. When Stanley the Knife comes out, I don't always feel like that, but thank you.
Well, no, it's obvious that you are. Romany, we've loved chatting with you. I apologize for the pauses. It is the tech. It's not that we're slow of thinking. Romany, thank you so much, and good luck with everything.
Good to meet you. Thanks, Romany.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. What a lovely, lovely chap.
Yes.
Smashing fellow.
And very interesting, and it just goes to show it doesn't matter what sort of work you're in, that you do have.
Lanyard off.
Well, I'm sort of hiding it because I'm still in my BBC building, or one of them anyway. So yes.
In that it says BBC. Oh, thank you.
I've come straight off air and onto the show, so you know.
Now, the tech gremlins, bless you for doing this. I am very, very grateful, as are the audience all over the world. It's lovely to see you. It's disgraceful that Neil Long locks you in a cupboard whenever he's on, in case you are outside of the world at the
Oh, don't worry. I mean, it's my choice. I sit in the background pulling faces at him, so it's fine.
I know you do. I know you do. It's where is the great comedian gone? The great thinker.
Well, he's judging from the photographs that I've received, he's sunning himself in the Caribbean, which is very exciting. But what he doesn't know is we're a hive of activity, Shay Long. So, bless you, Graham. I've certainly got a bit more hair, maybe. But perhaps better looking, but
Oh. Why, before we go down to matters more serious, why is
oh gosh, now you've paused mid-question.
But we'll never know.
We got why is, and then a massive gap.
Yeah, I know. Acceptable now. It's just got worse.
Yes, it is rather concerning. I don't know whether it would help if you sort of went in and went out again or something.
You're going to talk.
Okay. I'm going to talk. Russ is going to try and see if he can sort out a couple of tech gremlins. I do apologise for the delay. You are listening to Men's Radio Station with me, Liz Saul, and Russ Kane, as I say, just sorting out his tech problems at the moment. The only issue is I can't see any of the messages because I'm on my mobile. So I do apologise if I don't get to your messages. I shall endeavour to get Russ to read them as soon as he comes back again. But what I found very interesting about Romany's interview is he talked about, not finding his talent as a sculptor and a painter particularly therapeutic. I can kind of see where he comes from. I wonder what you think as well, because you can get bogged down, you can get writer's block, as it were, but as a painter or a sculptor, and I certainly know somebody who's quite a well-known painter of contemporary times who, the painting is amazing, but you can sometimes see the anger in some of his pieces. I suppose it's therapy in that once you take a step back and look at it, you'll then find that actually you've sort of cleared some of that anger in your head or in your body. That's why I find that doing something creative, even if you do it as a passion, as Romany mentioned, or as a hobby, although he obviously does it as a living now, but it's a way of clearing that anger, helping your mental health to keep busy. Certainly I have quite a few passions in life. I do enjoy my work. I can't see myself not working. I suppose that in itself is a kind of therapy because it keeps your brain ticking over. For those of you that don't know, I'm Russ sort of grumbling away, but I'm a BBC radio journalist, broadcast journalist. And we do bulletins on the radio, 4 or 5 minutes at the most. You simply don't have time to go into details other than to keep everyone updated on the day's news, depending on where you are, and sort of turning things over and finding out about communities, which is very interesting, certainly working in local radio. And we talked to a bloke the other day who worked for the Mind Network, and he was in the Hertfordshire branch. And 1 in 4 people experience a mental health issue every year just in this country, which is obviously, quite concerning. But equally, it shows that you're not alone in this. And this chap was telling us his story, that he'd had a psychotic episode, he was sectioned, but then how he came to be put in touch with the Mind Network, with other various agencies, some directly through the NHS, and others were sort of community-based projects and things in order to try and help him. And now I've just seen a message come up from Asa Don Brown saying, you've got to love the technology. I don't know if these are coming up because of a delay or because Russ is somehow on his way back. There he is. And Graham Pack, yes, there's a massive gap. I do apologise. Hello, Russ. I hope I've covered a few subjects. I can't see any of the messages, though, so you'll have to go through them for me.
Hello, Jean. Hello, Jean. BFPO 24. Looking forward to seeing you at Christmas. This is Two-Way Family Favorites with me, Cliff Mitchell-Moore, and Eugene Metcalf in Hong Kong. Jeez, that takes me
Two-Way Family Favorites.
I swear to God, I think the light program. Oh, stop pretending to be young. It's annoying. When I was a kid, the cutting edge.
Oh, when you were a kid, okay.
The cutting edge.
When I was not even a twinkle.
You weren't even thought of, baby.
No.
You were not even.
Sorry.
You weren't even a random thought. You weren't even a random thought. And there was a thing, because I'm very old, called Two-Way Family Favorites, which was on a Sunday. One guy was based in London, one guy and lady was based somewhere else. And because there was no real technology, it was mainly for the forces. And they go, hello to Private John Neil Long, serving with the 1st Fusiliers. And it was the way of families linking up. It was called Two-Way Family Favorites. And here for you is Al McCogan and Dreamboat. And they would do all this kind of stuff. And because I was an only child, I was addicted to the radio. I loved the radio. I love watching TV. I never wanted to be on TV particularly. It didn't interest me. I loved to write for TV. But I loved the radio. And those are kind of some of my earliest memories in the comedy shows.
I mean, we both have good faces for radio.
I don't agree with that. I just think that's bullshit. I've always thought that was crap. I find it very insulting. I find it insulting, and I find it.
I find it amusing.
And people who are nothing to do with the media go, and you got a good face for radio, and I go, you got a face for an arse. So shut up. I mean, who cares? doesn't matter. Now, I want to go back to this march. Yes, I want to go back to this march yesterday, briefly. I want to do it from a mental health point of view. I'm not talking politics. I've done my best to keep I want to keep politics out of this station. You want politics, you got it 24 hours a day on 500 different stations. Fill your boots.
Well, quite.
I'm going to be very honest about this, Liz. Number one, I hate crowds. Anyone who knows me, the real me, I freak out in crowds. I can't bear it at all. I don't even like people near me. That's the truth. I've got a straight, and it's got worse as the years have gone on. It's actually got worse. And the other thing, I'm not ashamed to admit this. I was concerned. I'm not going to use the word afraid because that's too far. But I really was concerned because I'm not a physically particularly brave guy. I suppose if I lose my temper, etc., yeah, I would. Come for my dog, come for my family. All bets are off. But I'm just a bloke, right? And I don't pretend to be a tough guy, but probably I am deep down. And I thought, well, if it all kicks off, this will be my worst nightmare. If it all kicks off, opposing forces, let's just call it that, who are not so polite and delightful and charming. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be. And I thought about it, and I thought, I've got to go. I've got to go. I have to be
okay
for myself as for everybody. And it was incredible. I want to describe the most incredible moment. So everybody, the good-natured atmosphere was extraordinary.
Yes.
105,000.
Yes, I got that impression from people I know were there. I couldn't go. I was working.
Yeah. But no pushing and no shoving. If people did that, I'm so sorry, excuse me. You can't believe the level of politeness because everybody wanted to be there. And then somebody, eventually at the time, it was delayed because somebody who was not invited, who had been asked to please stay away, please don't ally yourself with what this is about. I'm not going to mention his name. I'm not going to get into the way that he was treated. That's another rabbit hole we could talk about for ages. Don't think it was right. That's my own personal view. I don't think it was right. It was a huge overreaction. But we'd been chatting to the police. Police were smiling at us because they knew there's not going to be any trouble. I'm like the average age. What the hell am I going to do? We're going to wander along. We're not yelling. We're not shouting. We're not screaming. There's no anger. And then we're all standing still. We're outside the Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand, where I used to go every single day as an article clerk a million years ago. 5 miles of corridor in that building, Liz. 5 miles of corridors. Supreme Court of Judicature. And somebody blew a horn. and the march, it was a meander really, started. And this roar, and the roar started at the front, and it traveled past me and traveled up the Strand, and this roar was incredible. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. I mean it. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. This visceral roar of thank you, and we're here, and solidarity. And it was a reaction against all the hatred and the violence. It was a reaction against the sheer disbelief. It was a reaction against the vile cesspit that so much of social media is, which is just horrific. And my cousin, bless her, I'm stunned she was there, but it said, let's see if I can get it, gave us goosebumps. This roar was incredible. And I felt something shift inside me. Because since October the 7th, I don't have any family in Israel. I don't know anybody really over there. Been there a few times on holiday. That's it. And I've been in a deep, dark place. It's been horrible. And I've had to fight it, take myself off social media because the hatred is so disgusting, and take myself off it. And this roar, this was just, yes, this is it. We're here. It was incredible. And I felt it just go. Just go. And I think what that 1 second was, you're not alone. You're not alone. You know, you think about our first guest, Romany, what he went through. He lost his soulmate to AIDS, etc. And you think about that, and it's like, you feel alone. I mean, the guy was spat on in the street for creating a piece of art. Gee, what a world. What a world. He creates a piece of art and somebody spits on him in the street because he's walking his dog because they didn't like it. This is the underbelly of society. That's what it's about, right? The level of hatred is incredible. It just kept a lid on. So we have the head of the Met Police, who just seems inept, complicit. I don't know. A politician, not a copper, as some policemen said. We have a mayor who, anyway, just talking about it makes my stomach knot up. So this was an amazing moment. And then we walked, and that was it. Talking to strangers. Things I loved the most was there was 2 guys from Iran. I guess in their head it was Persia, not the Iran who wants to nuke everyone and is fueling terror. And they were there, and they were welcomed by everybody. Was coming up and talking to them. They had the flags, and I think they were excited to be there. And it was a beautiful thing. There were people of all descriptions, all colors, all religions. It was an amazing coming together of people. And it meant a lot. And then I realized, to my amazement, that so many of my friends had gone along, and so many people that I admire had gone along. And obviously didn't run into anybody, but there were some fantastic conversations that was cracking me up. Like people on the phone, where are you? It's 105,000 people. Where are you? I'm third from the left. Where do you? Jesus Christ. It was hilarious, but it was a wonderful, good humor. My favorite. But what was really interesting is that people won't forget. People won't forget. People won't forget the lies by the BBC. They won't forget it. And we're paying for it. We're paying for those people to sit there and spew their lies. People forget people like Kay Burley. Jesus. Next time I run into her, words will be. Liz is back. People won't forget. Liz?
Hello.
You back?
I am.
I can't hear you.
Hello, Jay.
Oh, hello. Oh, good.
Hello.
We've got a rather.
Hang
on.
Hello.
Bear
No, we've
with
got some.
me.
No, we need to get rid of that, love. We'll get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. People won't forget Kay Burley. People won't forget the lies of Sky News. And there were so many placards, handmade, saying, about the BBC. There were placards about Sky News and the other purveyors of loathing, hatred, and twisted lies. That's it. Let's go. Just quickly. Let's get Liz back. See if she's back without the mystery voice. Was that the mystery voice, Liz? Was that the voice?
Yes, I don't know who that mystery voice was. I'm in a studio, so that's usually used for.
I love this one. This is funny. This should. Oh my God, the lag on this system is driving me insane. Did you get this? Is adorable. There was a woman with a placard. Did you jot down the phone number of the woman that was looking for a date? No, I didn't. But online, you can find it. She's standing there with a placard. I thought it was charming. Now let's dash across to Spain. What's going on with you, Liz? It's exciting, but I have no idea. Chrissy Rich. Hello, Liz. That's the entirety of our conversation. We're just saying hello to each other. Boy, are you there? I don't know. I think she's on Mars today. International Space Station. Chrissy Richards is. So we can see you, Liz, but we're hearing. We can. Yeah, there we go. Chrissy Richards says, "Hello, Russ. Sorry I haven't been on for a while. Happier this year for Xmas. Got to toughen up. You don't have to toughen up, Chrissy. This station, created by myself, Howard Jameson, Penny Horner, is all about mental health and well-being, right? You don't have to toughen up. Don't beat yourself up, Chrissy. You've had a terrible time. And that's putting it mildly. I don't understand, in all seriousness, and I hope just through the medium of radio and a men's radio station, I hope I'm not overstepping the line. But I don't know how you're managing to put one foot in front of the other, because if what happened to you had happened to me, I would be a basket case. So when you say you have to toughen up, I don't think you do at all. I think what you've done is fantastic. The fact you're still here, that you're functioning, you're having 3 meals a day, you're going out, you're doing things. It's incredible. What's happened to you is every parent's nightmare. Most parents couldn't bounce back, and you're still here. So you should be less hard on yourself. That was it. Some of the other placards yesterday was just witty. Like one, because I guess out of the 105,000 people, probably 100,000 are Larry David fans. It says, "Hey, racists, curb your enthusiasm," which I just thought was rather witty. Another one was somebody wandering around was, I thought there'd be bagels. I made a mistake yesterday. I'm bringing Liz back on.
Oh, yes. What did you do now?
That's way better. That's way better. No. I brought you back on. We can see you. You were moving like, those early pictures of the astronauts when they were sent into space and they're black and white and there's a series of stills. No, now you're moving like a proper motion picture. This is like Martin.
Well, I must say you were doing the same, and you suddenly went into the black screen of death.
I live in the black screen of death. The rest of it is a plus. The rest of it is a plus.
So come on then, tell me about your date you got yesterday at this march.
I didn't go on a date yesterday. No, the woman with the placard, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, it was wonderful. She was there. She had a placard looking for a nice single guy, and she had her phone number.
Oh, I see. You see, this is what happens when you kind of get pixelated out and we hear every third word.
No, God only knows what people are hearing, and I don't know. I'm hearing one thing and you're hearing another thing. It's absolutely brilliant. Michael, obviously, Francine Warner is saying that Michael took sandwiches. This was her husband. There's 105,000 people there yesterday, and who did BBC local news decide to stop and film? Michael, who I've only known since he was 60. Michael Warner. I was surprised he managed to do an entire interview without going, Fran, where are you? Fran, where are you? Fran. My favourite story about Michael Warner. You'll like this, Liz. Can you hear me? Oh, she's frozen again. I'm going. So my favourite story about Michael, and we've known each other since we were kids, since we were 15, right? Married to my cousin. So she starts years ago. She starts to look for him around the house, right? Can't find Michael. Can't find him. She's going from room to room. It's not Downton Abbey. It's just a house, right? It's just a house. And it's going, hello, Michael. I can't find him. And suddenly, she hears, Fran. And she thinks, well, where's the light? Fran, help. So she goes around every room again, looking for her husband. Fran, help. Can't go. So she thinks, well, maybe he's in the garden. Goes into the garden. Fran. Looks around the garden, can't see him. Looks up. He's on the roof. He's got himself stuck. Only Michael could do this. He's got himself stuck on the roof. God knows what he was. I think he was fixing the aerials. And if he'd ever listened to the Archers, he wouldn't have done that, right? Call the fire brigade. They have to call the fire brigade to get him off the roof. This is from Simon Wise. Well done for going, Russ, and the rest of the family. Yay! Well done, Simon. Lovely to hear from you. Here we go. And this is from Chrissy. I'm bringing you back in a minute, Liz. Hold on. Thank you. You helped, though. I'm waiting for your book. Darling, I've got to finish it first. And that's the pressure I got. Let's try again. Oh, man.
It's very odd because it was fine the first half hour or so, and now we seem to be bouncing around like androids in space.
Androids in Space by the BBC.
That could be your next book.
Yeah, the Androids in Space. Well, no, I'm 50,000 words in the new one.
Yes.
I've got to deliver the next novel.
30,000 to go.
About 30, yeah. I've got it out. I know where it's going.
The book, okay.
Liz. And that's my thing. I got to stop. I'm just writing, sitting in my room, writing away. Ching, ching, and you got to just do. She's frozen again, but it's a charming image. Very nice woman, Liz Saul, I have to say. Very, very charming. A very, very good professional broadcaster for the BBC. So we're lucky to have her, but nothing's happening. This is just bizarre, isn't it? Well, I can hope you can help me. Now, that's not nice, Graham. Androids in Space, better than... That's rude. It's just rude. Anyway, yesterday was very, very uplifting. Now, some of you watching and listening around the world go, well, what was the point? And you go, I don't know. Is it going to change anything? Nope. It's not. And neither will marching every Saturday, taking over London, screaming and shouting, threatening, yelling that you want to kill this one, and yelling. That's not achieve anything. What it does is just divide society, which is now beyond repair. Sorry. Game's over. Game over. Done now. What it has done since October the 7th is everybody knows who everybody is. We see you. Won't forget. That's it. It's not good. It's not nice. It's not where we want to be. And you think, well, why is this? Why is this happening? So many divisions. And it's really very bad for everybody's mental health. It's not what you want. You just want to get on with life. And the older you get, the more you just want to get on with life. That's what you want to do. But so be it. So be it. We're led by donkeys and we're treated like idiots. So that's where you end. That is where you end up. But I think for each of us who went yesterday, it was a real pivotal moment. It's just a great moment to say, well, here we are. And we're not alone. And it's okay. We'll get through it. Somehow we will just get through it. You're not going to change anybody's opinion. The great thing that we have learned, and the great thing we know about the media, and especially the cesspit that is Twitter or X as it's called, the great thing we know about it is you're not going to change anybody's opinion. Because you're dealing with lunatics. And that's all there is to it. Liz, you're not going to change anybody's opinion, are you, by marching? No one's opinion's going to change. Doesn't matter. You're just more divisive.
No, equally though, I felt it was something that the Campaign for Anti-Semitism had to do, and of course they have a right to do. It seemed to largely pass off without any particular problems, which is always good. People do have a right to.
Let's be clear.
No problem. And people have a right to protest and express their opinions and things, but it must be done in an orderly fashion. I don't see any point in being confrontational with anything, really. There's nothing that I feel can't be solved by, talking and mediating. And, no matter what side you're going to pin your colours to the mast with the current Middle East situation, or not, as the case may be, it's not nice to see any bloodshed on either side.
No, nobody wants.
I don't think it helps anybody. There was a World War I poet who wrote, "War is not about what's right, but who's left."
It's always terrible. It's always terrible. But then you get things like, one of the head politicians in Ireland going, "Oh, this little girl was lost, and now she's been." She wasn't lost. She didn't wander off in Alton Towers, you idiot.
No, exactly.
She was kidnapped.
That's far too simplistic.
What the hell do you think you're doing? She wasn't lost. It wasn't in Mill Hill Park and went off to get an ice cream, and her mum turned around and she was kidnapped, for Christ's sake.
Well, quite. I think one of the saddest stories of all was something that certainly I had yesterday when I was doing the news, that there were these two young boys that were released by Hamas yesterday. Their uncle came to meet them after they'd had medical checks and everything. They had no idea that their mother had been killed on October the 7th. Their mother was one of those murdered. Their father is still one of the hostages in Gaza. And they had no idea that their mother had been murdered. They were, expecting her to come out and meet them, and instead it was their uncle. And he went on record and said, I can't imagine that was such a traumatic conversation I had to have with them. It's just awful.
Awful. It's not the sort of conversation you ever forget, and it's not the sort of conversation you ever bounce back from.
No.
And I'll throw this in. It isn't about me, but it's just trying to give an example. People say, "Oh, you have no fear of public speaking, do you?" I go, "No." And they go, "Why not?" And I go, "Well, because when you've had to tell your children they're never going to see their mum again, trust me, everything else, walk in the park, it doesn't come even close."
No, exactly.
That uncle, he's not going to forget that conversation. The kids aren't going to forget that conversation, unless they're young enough, I think the children are young enough, maybe they don't remember, but you bloody well do. And Graham Pack's saying this, and this is so true. He's making it a joke, but it's true. So if I mislay my umbrella on the underground, I go to the London Transport Lost and Found Department. This child's father didn't have that facility in Gaza. No, they weren't.
Well, no, quite. It's not quite that simple at all. No, and you can't simplify these things. Let's make no bones about it. The Middle East situation has been going on for centuries. Thousands of years, and it's not something that's easily simplified or solved in a matter of moments.
No, it's not. It's very complicated. It's very emotional, etc. And but I think what yesterday showed is that 105,000 people can walk through central London and no incident, not one incident at all.
No.
And that's a magnificent achievement. And I think it speaks volumes. Liz, are you joining us on Wednesday when the technology, of course, will be equally as crap? But will you be joining us?
This Wednesday, I'm unable to. Well, I might pop in for 10 minutes. But otherwise, I shall be back.
We've got it in our diary. I've got it in my diary. Jesus.
Yes.
You know, some days I don't think I could find my arse with both hands, and today is one of those days. Thank you so much for joining. It's always lovely to see you. Say hello.
You're very welcome.
Say hello to that miscreant Neil Longy Long when you next speak to him, which I'm sure will be in about 10 minutes' time. Thank you, everybody all around the world, for joining us. I'll be
see you again soon.
We've got some. Look at that. She's so professional. See you again soon. She does a little sign off and everything. Me, I just meander. I just kind of
might have done this before.
You may have done this just a bit. She is horribly professional. Bye, everybody. Stay safe.